Just want to say that there still are books for sale back there, and we'll sign as many books as anybody wants back there afterwards. We're going to have a little opportunity though for Q&A, some questions. Anybody wants to ask questions of any of us here? Lots of people here.
Don't be shy, folks. Let me go for real quick. Both of you have written books. Mike, have you written a book?
Yes.
You have. What was the toughest? We'll start with you, Del. What you learn about yourself? Because they say writing it's very difficult to write well.
I never tried it. I just wrote it. I don't think it was well, but it worked. My first books were about how to coach basketball, so I was reasonably good at English in the first place. So, and then write about how to do pick and rolls and zone defenses and offenses and the various strategies and things like that were pretty easy. The third book I wrote was a kid's book, a young teens book, about 3 kids that played Indiana high school basketball, and I took them through a season. That one, took a little different view. As I said, the other magazine articles, the last book before this one, and I have another one coming out that is just how to coach basketball. This particular one is the only one that really had to labor over, and that was, again, I was trying to cut mine. Mine is only 38,000 pages, because I figured, good at English, not vocabulary, words, and I figured that nobody would want to buy a book that I had written that wasn't about how to coach basketball that was any thicker than that. It started out at 55,000 and was a result of having given some lectures at a college in the Dallas area, and the president, after I was done with speaking at a commencement one time, said that I should write a book on that. And I told them a week later, I thought about it, and I said, well, I'll write a book on it if you'll let me teach a class on it first. And then when the class is over, if I feel like that any of it makes enough sense that somebody might want to read it, I'd do that. So, I still had some questions, but the students liked it, and so I knew I had to cut it down. But that, as Mike said, that was really, I think, for me, the hardest part, cutting it down. I thought I had it, really good. I'd get done and I'd say, well, I'm glad that's over. And then I'd reread it. And oh man, that's no good. And, I did this about 7 or 8 times. I got done. I was done. I'm going to send it 7 or 8 times, and it never was any good. Finally, it wasn't all that good in my mind, but I thought, I'll send it anyway. And the publishers thought it was good, and so it's become a book. But I think that cutting down is the hardest.
Same thought. Well, Mike's talking. How about for you, Michael? What was the biggest challenge, just from the writing standpoint?
Well, I think for me it was trying to decide what goes in and what doesn't go in this particular story. I could easily do a volume 2. Just talking to John Schwank yesterday, I don't know how many stories he has to tell that deserve to be told and shared with everybody, that he could easily do a lot. So just the selection process was probably the biggest. Yeah.
Mike, you're in the digital age. The Game Changer is quite a book. If you're writing a book today, what's something that may be different from a few years ago? But again, from the first question, what's the biggest challenge?
Well, I can, in a way, answer both at the same time, because the biggest challenge is getting the first draft done. And because of the digital age, you have the opportunity to edit as you go. With typewriters, you had to just keep going. You couldn't go back and erase and change and edit the same sentence while you were writing it, which is the temptation right now. So the hardest part has always been the first draft, and it's even harder in the digital age. But I wanted to tell a quick story about Ray Bradbury, the science fiction writer, who said to me, we were talking about writing, and he said, "This is my advice, name your loves and prove your loves." And I think that's what Mike has done with this book. I was working with Ray on a project at Disney, and my dad's cousin, Gene Zinner from Louisville, came up to me at a family reunion and said, "You know, Ray wrote a short story called Dandelion Wine, and I make dandelion wine, and I bet nobody's ever given him a bottle of dandelion wine. If I give you a bottle of dandelion wine, could you give it to Ray Bradbury?" I said, "Sure, I will." So he brought me a bottle of dandelion wine while I was back here visiting, and it had a special label on it to Ray Bradbury. And next time I saw Ray, I gave it to him, and I said, he goes, "Oh, I get these all the time." He goes, "Last year I got one, some guy snuck into the backyard of a home I grew up in Waukegan, Illinois, and they picked the dandelions, and they made dandelion wine out of those dandelions. But I'll take it." So the next time I saw Gene, he goes, "Well, what did he say?" I go, "He loved it. He was blown away." Nobody had ever given him a bottle of dandelion wine. So sometimes fiction is the way to go.
Thank you, Mike. Folks, any questions? And then we'll get to the signing. Anything that you want? Having for can we go? This is about as far as we can go, right? Dave, stay on this side here.
Okay. I've been instructed by my wife that I need to introduce the players, the characters. I'm going to start with the players. Pat Sheeter, back here, he's hiding back here. Ron Clem. Jim Eck. Alan Vogel. Arnie Renner. Is there anybody else that I'm not seeing? Doug Paget was a member of that team. Stan Leinebach was a member. Stan Clem, Ron's brother, was a part of that. Am I missing anybody? Joe Lentz, who couldn't be here. And Bill Linetti. And of course, we all know Red Keish is not here, but he is here in spirit. The other guys that were very important of the season and have places in the book as well, and that's Gary Rashi. And a favorite cousin of mine, Sam Small. Is there anybody else that I'm not? Oh, Ronnie Heim, I'm sorry. You're hiding behind Fred here. Ron was our manager, and he was a good one.
Cheerleaders.
No, Ron? Oh, the cheerleaders? I know Connie's here. Anybody else? Oh, Franny's back there, okay. Vince Mundy, he lives down in Melbourne, Florida. I see him occasionally. He was here back in March. And who was it? Linda Armstrong? She's not here. And Laverne Keish? She's not here. Is that it then? But anyway, I wanted to recognize them because they were tremendous, and without all of them, we wouldn't be here either. So thank you.
Well, one thing I want to clear up, just so for the comment I made about the Hoosiers, those things not happening there, and that relates to what was said about why the writer that Mike was talking about that sort of rejected this story, saying that every small town had this story. No, every small town didn't have this story. The Hoosiers book and story movie was about what happened in 20 other small Indiana towns, and it was a compendium of events that took place. There were the town drunk, the shooter guy, there were the old coach that came someplace, there were schools where 7 kids tried out and they still had a really good team. All those things happened in small town Indiana in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. But they didn't happen at Milan. Whereas, as I was saying, these things happen here, and that's why this is a book, and those other places are just footnotes in the book Hoosiers. Okay, I'm not knocking Hoosiers. I loved it, but I'm supporting this.
Any final questions, folks? Anything? Hey, you've been a wonderful audience, but it's not over. Again, Mike and Del will both be thrilled to sign the books. One more time, we thank Del Harris, Mike Bonifer, and thank you, Dave Small, to all the guys, to the great. Thanks for the great ride, and thank you to the fans, all the loved ones. Give yourself a hand, and to the Pete Gill family. 1963 lives again. Thank you, folks. Thank you, Jim.